And I don't tell I'm not here to tell people what that is for them. I don't tell, these are the non-foods, you must not eat them. No, we're about freedom. We're about you feeling fully free to eat what you want to eat. We help you to decide what foods are in that category.
Hallo ihr Lieben, herzlich willkommen bei Greater zu einem Interview mit einem extrem faszinierenden Menschen. Und ihr werdet gleich so viel über das Thema Verhaltensveränderung, Ernährung, wie du deinen Körper wirklich umprogrammierst, gesundes Essen zu essen. Also ein Mensch, den ich wirklich, wirklich zutiefst bewundere. Eric Edmeades, it's great to have you here. You are an expert in changing behavior, long-term changing behavioral dynamics. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Eric, please tell us something about your work, because you change how people behave deeply, strategically, and long-lasting. On what topics do you help?
You know, my background really is about business. So, you know, I've been involved in a number of industries, from mobile computing to Hollywood special effects to military research and development. But there came a point in my business life where I really started enjoying mentoring. And as a kid, I'd always wanted to be a teacher. But what I found was that very often with teaching, it's like teachers sometimes have this attitude that learning is the student's responsibility. And I suppose that's a good thing for the student to think, but I think that the teacher should also take responsibility for putting the information in, for making the information sticky. And so when I decided to become a mentor and I decided to get involved in teaching, I started examining how you do that. What is the difference between a teacher that just lectures and hopes that the students absorb the information and a teacher that can put the information in your head even if you don't want it to be there? And that became the beginning of the development of something we call behavioral change dynamics, which we now use in our business trainings, in our public speaking trainings, but where we've had the biggest impact around the world is through our nutrition coaching in WildFit, helping people change their relationship with food. And I picked that because two reasons. It's the hardest place to get people to change.
You, of course, if you look at Christmas time, we have to eat some sugar and drink some beer and.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing. And then the second thing is, it's also the most important thing to change.
Yeah.
The truth is, whether somebody wants to be a successful business person or a professional or elite athlete or parent or husband or wife, the healthier you are, the better person you are. So I picked that topic because I had a huge turnaround in my own health as a young man. I was very, very sick for a very long time, and I turned it all around. And I started trying to help other people to turn it around. But you know what I found out is they could never stick to the rules for more than a week or two.
I mean, rules are quite difficult, because if you say, okay, I need to do that. At the beginning of the year, we change everything. Quit smoking, never drink, do sports on a regular basis. And we try to change our behavior. Of course, we go back to our old routines.
Yeah.
So how do you change them?
Well, there's a bunch of different things that kind of help. The one is that most people attempt to make large sweeping changes like in a dramatic way, right? So there, for example, you might be December 31st, I'm gonna change everything, I'm gonna eat properly, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna be a nice person, you know? I'm gonna be young. And then, you know, when does that stop? For many people, it stopped before January 1st even started, because they started eating junk food at the New Year's party and they got drunk and they're already smoking cigarettes. It's over. Some people last to January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, 10th, but most people by January 15th, it's done. And that's because, in a sense, it was like they started off at 0 kilometers per hour and they made a commitment to go to 100 kilometers an hour immediately. What they really needed to do potentially was start smaller and create momentum and you know, do things that allowed them to build self-esteem. And here's what I mean. If somebody, let's say, wants to work out at the gym, and that's it, I gotta get fit, I gotta go to the gym, I'm gonna go 5 days of the week, I'm gonna go for an hour, I'm gonna really, okay. Now, the problem is that they're not gonna do that because they haven't created that time in their schedule. They haven't got that habit. So they're gonna last for 3 or 4 days, maybe a week or two, but then they're gonna make an exception. And the weird problem is that when they make that exception, their self-esteem is gonna come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when their self-esteem comes down a little bit, they're going to make more exceptions, because the lower your self-esteem.
You have that reference point that tells you won't do it anyway, so wow, no,
Yeah.
Nothing for me, I can't do that.
So for example, I had a client years ago that really wanted to get to the gym more. And a matter of fact, get to the gym, because they just weren't. They weren't working out. And so I kind of got into finding out what the strategy was. And the strategy was that he couldn't even get himself to get the gym clothes together. Like he was like, I don't know where they all are. And like, he couldn't even get that far. So what I made him do for 1 week, I said, all I want you to do is I want you to go get your gym clothes. I want you to put them in the gym bag, and I want you to put your gym bag at the door. And then that's it. And he goes, well, but then I can go to the gym. I mean, I've got my clothes. I go, nope, you can't. I just want you to take your stuff to the door and have it there. And then I want you to walk past it and go to work. And he's like, really? And I go, yeah. And he goes, okay. Then the next week I said, now I want you to take that stuff and I want you to put it in your car. Wow. I want you to put it in your car, but don't go to the gym. And he's like, so by the third week, he was dying to go to the gym. You see what's happened, right? Yeah. He's not trying to force himself anymore. He's waiting for permission to go. But then what I told him is, I want you to go to the gym and you're not allowed to spend any more than 15 minutes there.
Wow.
15 minutes.
Wow.
And he's like, what? Because by the time 15 minutes, I'm really feeling good and I want to do more. Nope. Nope. And so by the time we got to the 4th week, he was going to the gym on a regular basis. He was enjoying it. He'd established the habits. We'd ramped him into it. And so this is just one of the many tools
just change
that we
the programs. The programs which we all have with the same thing you do on business.
Yeah.
How?
Well, in business, for example, what happens very often for business leaders. Here's a good example. I was working with a business owner, and he was, let's say, not very friendly. And
sometimes they are difficult.
Yeah, and he would get so focused, and he thought it was okay to be grumpy with people and so on. And so the first thing that we did is we did a survey of the entire company, an anonymous survey. So he would never be told what people said. Yeah. And we got the real quotes. We got the real quotes back from people, and people said harsh things. They used words that we're not going to use in this masterclass. Like they said their real feelings. Now, we didn't tell him who said what, but we shared with him the impression that people had. Now, first of all, that's a pattern interrupt. It's called reality. And very often business owners don't have any reality because, you know, the more powerful you become, the more successful you become.
Also, you need to be some kind of focused and some kind of extreme person if you follow your dreams, because you have to switch off all that critics around you.
But it creates you don't want to switch off the critics around you. That's the problem.
In the beginning,
so
believe in your idea and start your business. You have to quiet them down
keep
somehow.
Letting the criticism come.
Yeah, sure.
You have to, and what happens for a lot of them is they get bigger and bigger. The people around them stop being willing to share with them any criticism. Stop being willing to share anything with them. So they end up in a bubble. So this guy was in a bubble. The first thing we did, pop the bubble. We got all the data for him. Now, the next thing we did is we said, in the mornings when you come in, all you have to do is spend 10 or 15 minutes just greeting people and saying hi to people warmly. That's it. Nothing else. You don't have to be nice for the rest of the day. You just got to start the day, walk around and you know, he did this. He walked in, hey, how are you? How are the kids? Just for 15 minutes. Then he went to his desk. And very, very quickly what happened is it ramped up. He started small with small behavioral change, and then he was able to build big behavioral change on top of that.
So let's talk about something which is not, business is interesting for many people, but I think for everybody is how nutrition and health works, because health, we all want to be healthy, we want to be fit, we want to have a long life and a good life. How do we change behavior in general when we want to have a good life? And I think you yourself had some difficulties with your health in younger years, right?
I really did.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges that we face as humans is that our pleasure or reward systems, they're out of date. So I've spent, over the last 15 years, I've spent a huge amount of time with a hunter-gatherer tribe in Africa called the Hadza people. And I've been visiting with them
in Africa?
In Tanzania.
And you are South Africa,
I'm
right?
from South Africa originally, yeah. And so I've spent a lot of time with them, and on my last visit with them, just last year, something kind of interesting happened. I was there with some friends of mine. I brought Jeffrey Perlman that we were speaking about earlier today, and my girlfriend who's a photographer, and some other people. And we headed off and we went on a hunting trip. And while we were on the hunting trip, something kind of crazy happened. I needed to pee. That wasn't the crazy part. And so
sometimes it happens.
Sometimes it happens. And so I walked away from the group to, there was a dry riverbed down there, and I turned to my girlfriend and everybody else, and I said, I'll be right back. Now, I don't know how many Hollywood movies you watch, but if somebody is in the middle of the bush in Africa and they say, I'll be right back, and they leave, they're not coming back. No. But I just said, I'll be right back, and I went down to the river to have a pee. Now, I'm zipping up, and all of a sudden the chief, Nona, the chief, well, really it's but I can't say it properly. So anyway, the chief goes running by, and the dogs go running by, and he goes, Mzungu, 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 and he's like gesturing. Now, Mzungu is a Swahili word that basically means tourist. So I think he's shouting at me to run with him. So I start running with him, like, where are we running? Where are we running? And we're running and we're running. And after about 15 or 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, all the guides and my friends are back there, and I have no idea how to get back. 15 minutes of running full through the bush, and if I get separated now, I'm in the middle of Africa. There's no meeting point. You know, when you're in an amusement park, you just go to the meeting. There's no meeting point. And after an hour of running, I am in so much pain because we'd already done about 15 miles that day, or like 20 kilometers. Like we had done some serious distance, and now we've been running for another hour, and I feel all the pain in my feet, and I'm out of breath, and I'm tired, and I'm thirsty, and then suddenly I have this like out-of-body experience, and I see what's happening around me, and I see something very clearly. Those people, the Hadza people, they're amazing. Every single thing they do every day to get pleasure is good for them.
Wow.
You see, when they hunt, it's good for them. When they pick berries, it's good for them. When they dig up root vegetables, it's good for them. When they go, everything they do, when they sing and they dance around the campfire, it's good for them. There's everything they do to create dopamine, to create serotonin, is actually good for them. So for them, hedonism, pleasure seeking, is a survival strategy.
Wow.
For us, it's a problem because there's a million ways to get pleasure that are bad for you. That's right. And so one of the problems we have is that there are foods that give us tremendous short-term pleasure with significant long-term consequences that we're not associated to. Yeah. And so for example, in the 1970s, almost nobody in America under 40 years old had type 2 diabetes. Now 1 in 3 Americans. And this is the biggest thing we have to change, is that right now our desire to seek short-term pleasure is costing us major consequences in the long term. And that is one of the first things we have to work with people on to help them change their relationship, is to stop seeking cheap short-term pleasure, but to aim for long-term pleasure.
But isn't it, on the other hand, also just a symptom of our society that so many people lead such a stressed life, a full life? They never ask themselves really deep question in what direction they should live, and they are often frustrated, and they try to drink, have food, or
let's back up.
These short-term kicks.
Let's back up. They live a stressed life, really. I mean, this is amazing to me. We live in the best, safest times in the history of ever. You have no doubt that you will eat today. You have no doubt that you will have heat when you go to your house, and you will have hot and cold running water. Do you know a pharaoh of Egypt would give everything to live your life? And we are talking about all this stress. Like, listen, 200 years ago, if you got drafted into the military and you were a carpenter, where would they send you? You think they'd send you off to construction? No, they would send you to the medical corps, because the most common medical treatment was amputation. And if you were a carpenter, you knew how to do that. That's when life was stressful. Oh, and by the way, in case that's not stressful enough, they hadn't invented anesthetics yet. So, like we talk about this stressed life that we live in the best times ever, but we come up with things to be stressed about, and then you're right. And then we go to the short kicks. We got to get our little caffeine boost, our little alcohol, softening, or our little sugar boost. What we really have to come to terms with is that we are buying short-term happiness at the expense of long-term suffering.
So now people come to you and say, okay, all right, but I need my sugar, I need my caffeine, I need my chocolate, I feel that you need, I need some serotonin because everybody knows eating chocolate makes you feel good. How do you reprogram this thing?
That's a very complicated thing, but you know what we'll first start with is how the programming got wrong in the first place, right? Let's start with that. So we have to try to understand why people have bad programming to begin with, right? So we weren't born with bad programming. We were born with excellent programming, but then our lives come along and, we learn things. So here's an example. A child falls and they skin their knee and they're bleeding and they're crying. And then of course the parent would do anything to get rid of that pain. As a parent, I would take the pain into my own body if I could to save my daughter, right? I would do that, but I can't. So now how can I distract her from the pain? A cookie?
Many people do that, yeah.
Maybe an ice cream? Something like that. Now, here's the problem. I give her the cookie or the ice cream. It distracts her from the pain, so mission accomplished. But a bunch of challenges are created. The first thing is that my little girl is learning that sugar is an anesthetic. She's
learning, I need something.
That's right. She's learning, I need that to solve this problem. She's also learning, because what else am I giving her when I'm patching her up? I'm giving her love. I'm giving her love and hugs. And so she's linking up this incredible feeling of being cared for to the cookies or the ice cream. So first of all, it's a painkiller. Secondly, it's equal to love, right? Oh, and thirdly, by the way, if I skin my knee, I get cookies. So they become clumsy, right? It trains them to become clumsy. Now, that's an example of how the programming goes really bad.
That's programming in self-destruction.
It is, it really is, and it starts really young. So let's go to the other side of the spectrum. How do we undo it? So one of my clients also happens to be a good friend of mine. She went through our program and she completely changed her life, and she wrote me the most beautiful message. She gave me all these things about weight she lost and how good she feels, but she said, honestly, the biggest upgrade for her, and I think I mentioned this in the masterclass that we did, but the biggest upgrade she talked about was that she, for the first time since she was a teenager, she felt like she could go to the beach and wear a two-piece swimsuit. I mean, it's a big upgrade, right? But she says, I have a problem. I go, what is it? And she goes, she came back and she was looking for a little help, and she came back and she goes, the trouble is lately I have this incredible craving for icing like on a cupcake or a cake or something. And I go, oh really, why? And she goes, I just do. And I go, oh, I think I know why. Did your mom used to do a lot of baking? Yeah. And did your mom make homemade icing? No. I go, okay, I don't know why. You tell me, what was it like with your mom? And she goes, I remember. She goes, I'd be upstairs and I would hear the can opener, the electric can opener. And I would know that she was opening a can of icing to put on the cake because I could smell the cake in the house. She goes, I'd sneak down the stairs, I'd sneak into the kitchen, I'd go under the counter, and I'd grab a spoon from the drawer, and I'd reach up, and I'd steal some icing. And my mom would always let me get away with 1 or 2 spoonfuls, and then she'd catch me because she knew I was doing it the whole time. And then we would laugh, and we would make the icing on the cake, and then I'd lick the spoon, and so on. I said, oh, so icing reminds you of time with your mother? And she goes, yeah, it really does. And I said, and lately your craving for icing's been really strong. And she goes, yeah. And I said, how's your relationship with your mother right now? And she became very emotional. Her eyes completely, they just got very, very watery. And tears started coming down her cheeks. And she said, my mom is entering early stage dementia and she's slipping away from me. And then she goes, oh my God, am I eating icing to try to get my mother back? Now, there are thousands of those programs that are existing in people.
Of course,
all the time.
you of course have thousands of these possibilities. Let me think of advertising. When you watch television and you watch some series you like, and there's just one food presented all the time, then you connect your favorite TV series to some special food, or so many situations could be
really
linked to that.
The advertising that we're dealing with today is using military-grade psychology to convince us to eat things that are absolutely terrible for us. A few years ago, you might have seen this, but a few years ago, I was looking at what I thought was a viral video, and it was somebody had collected CCTV footage, random CCTV footage from around the world of random acts of kindness. So you saw this one clip from a bank machine where the woman walks away from the bank machine and she drops her purse and she keeps walking, and the young man comes up behind her and he scoops it up and he hands it to her, and you go, oh, humans. And then you see this little old lady trying to cross the road I don't know, she's in the Czech Republic or somewhere, and the snow is everywhere and the cars won't stop for her. And these 2 young men come and they stop the traffic and they walk her across the street. And there's just random act of kindness. And what are you feeling when you watch those?
Love, good feelings, openness, oneness, whatever.
Yeah. And then as they get your feeling up and up and up, and then boom, a big red logo, open happiness. And you're being anchored so that whenever you see that logo, you will feel that feeling. And then you'll think that it has something to do with the disgusting, addictive, sugary chemicals that are in the bottle. And they're not. But you see, when you're 12 and 13 years old and this stuff starts on you, then it embeds deeply. So now here's a great example. Fast food chains. One of the things that they did some years ago that was very smart is they put like a park, like with a slide and a swing. Now, there were two reasons that was very smart. One was mothers and fathers that wanted to take their kids could now actually talk to each other because the kids would go off and play. So they would sit and stay longer.
It's a social environment. Yes, you feel connected. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they would stay longer and order more food. So it kind of worked, right? But the other reason that it worked is those kids, they're running around feeling good, see the logo. Running around feeling good, smell the smell. Smell the smell, see the logo, feel good, smell the smell.
So we get all
now you're
conditioned to
40
that, yeah?
years old
Yeah.
and you're driving down the road feeling a little low. You smell the smell, see the logo, and you're pulling in the drive-through. And it's because the 6-year-old was hypnotized.
Mm-hmm. So we all get conditioned by like that. And you said you did a master class for greater people, for you, where you teach people how to disconnect these connection and how to change behavior. Maybe you could give us a short preview of what you teach us.
Absolutely. In the master class, we addressed one of the most powerful things that can help people have a better relationship with food. Before we do that, let's say this. What doesn't work, as you described it earlier, is this like willpower thing where you get rules. That doesn't work. We know statistically that the average person will go on 2 to 3 diets a year, every year of their life, and they'll last for roughly 6 days. 6 days. And the reason they'll do that is they're attempting to use something called willpower. Now, willpower does work, but it doesn't work like that. The best way to describe willpower is like if you go snorkeling and you want to dive down, you hold your breath. Willpower.
In the beginning, it worked.
Yeah, but you pretty soon, if you got stuck under the water, your body would still try to breathe. It would still try to breathe, even though you consciously know you can't breathe the water. Your body will still try to breathe. That's how willpower works. So when somebody has said, no more sugar for you, and no more fat for you, and no more processed food for you, they can hold on, but there's gonna come a point around about 6 days or 7 days where they're inhaling all of it, right? So this is the first thing to understand, is that using willpower is never gonna work. It's not like that. Instead, what we do is we use willpower in short moments for specific things. What we really wanna do is create consciousness. So in the masterclass, we do a deep dive into something we call the 6 hungers. And there are 6 primary hungers that drive all of our eating decisions. So if you're eating something, it's because at least one of these hungers has been triggered, and probably more than one. And the more hungers that are triggered, the less control you have.
So give us one hunger as an example.
Thirst.
Thirst, okay, all right. So if I'm thirsty, some people need to drink some lemonade or some iced tea or some whatever.
Well, lemonade has sugar in it for most people, which is fine. It's just it's not going to be the best
thing.
If
you drink lemonade in order to fight your thirst, you just eat some sweets, right?
Then you end up thirsty.
Yeah.
The reason that thirst is an important form of hunger, because people often feel like, well, what do you mean thirst is hunger? For most of our history, we got a lot of our water from the food we ate. We didn't have water bottles, and we didn't have plumbing. So we got a lot of our water from the fruits that we ate, from the vegetables we ate, and even from the meat that we ate, because it was fresh, so it had water in it. The trouble is that today, a huge amount of the food we eat has basically no water in it, or very little water. So weirdly, your body starts feeling dehydrated, you get a craving for food, you eat a food, but if that food has no water in it, then you need water to process that food, so now you have even less water. So you feel dehydrated, so you eat more food. I don't know if potato chips are a big deal here, but they're salty and fatty, and nobody can ever just eat one chip.
So if you say awareness, if I want to eat some chips, how can I sharpen my awareness that I should not eat the chips, and how can I connect that to thirst?
That's another level. What I'm trying to suggest is that the first thing to understand is that if you eat the chips, you're gonna need to eat all of them because you're not satisfying the hunger. You're making yourself hungrier. That's the first problem, is you don't wanna eat foods that make you hungrier. So the best way to neutralize that is to not drink to quench your thirst. It's drink to prevent thirst.
Wow, yeah.
You drink preemptively. You drink in order not to get thirsty. Now, if you are staying hydrated like that, you will have less cravings for chips.
That sounds logical.
Yes.
So, but you have to remember, and you have to start up some new habits and train some habits, which means drink water.
Yeah, there's some great ways to do it. There are apps that you can get that remind you to drink. But the other thing you can do, we used to do this, I've done this a lot on our retreats and in some of our office environments where everybody's got their water bottles, and you have this policy that when you drink, you have to say, wherever country you're in, you have to say, I don't know what I don't know what it is in German, but in Scandinavia, Skull and Gambe and
Cheers.
Cheers.
Prost
Cheers.
in German is Prost, yeah.
What is it?
Prost.
Okay, I almost got it. But what we would do in the office is we'd go Gambe, and if one person said that, everybody had to drink.
Wow.
And it was a way of everybody reminding each other, because we're all so caught up with working that if I was drinking, I'd be like, oh, cheers everybody. And then everybody would lift their glasses and have a drink. And it was a way of reminding the team to drink.
So if you are thirsty, it's usually too late.
Yeah.
You already are thirsty.
Yeah.
And in the same amount of time, you can have these food cravings, and you will start eating, but you will not be satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. So if you proactively neutralize thirst by staying hydrated, you've neutralized one of the 6 hungers. So literally 1/6 the cravings.
You are very successful in training people how to change their behavior, not just with our masterclass. You also have your classes, how you teach people. Do you work with apps, or do you work with feedback, with coaches? How do you implement these new behaviors into people's lives?
So our most effective system is multimedia trainings. And multimedia trainings are trainings that are done with very effective storytelling and vocal models using video material. So educating, but in a way that really is engaging and fun, supported by live coaching. So we have about, 500 or so WildFit coaches around the world. And
it's called WildFit, right?
WildFit is my company, yeah. And so we have about 500 coaches around the world that have been trained in our nutritional principles, but also in our coaching technique. And so most of our clients will go through either an app or through a desktop, what have you, but they'll experience our training programs, but then they will also work with a coach to guide them through that process.
Wow. So you created a system which really helps people to stick to the process and really change behavior.
Yeah, basically what happened is that when I first changed my life, like as you mentioned, when I was young, I was sick all the time and I really was suffering and I was overweight and so on. And
you've been overweight too.
Sorry?
You've been overweight.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to say that because I weigh more now than I did then, but I was overweight then. And what I mean is that when I first started this whole exploration, I lost about, maybe 15 kilos or so. But I now weigh more than I did then. But the difference is that I have muscles.
Yeah.
And back then I only had fat. And of course I had sinus infections and allergies and acne, and my doctor wanted to do surgery. Like I had some serious problems. So I turned all that around, and then lots of my friends were like, holy cow, and I looked totally different. I mean, I looked so different that I flew to South Africa to visit my mother. I got off the plane, came down the stairs, and my mother looked straight through me. Didn't see me. Didn't even see me. She just looked straight through me. But then she saw my girlfriend. My girlfriend had bright red hair. She says it's strawberry blonde, but it's red. But anyway, she saw my girlfriend, recognized her, so then she looked at me again, and she's like, oh my God, because I had changed, my body and face had changed so much. And of course, so many of my friends came to me and said, how did you do that? And I'll never forget, there was one friend of mine, and I really wanted to help him because, here we are both in our early 20s, and he was already probably 25 kilos overweight, which is dangerous. I mean, it's really dangerous. That's more dangerous. Being obese is more dangerous than smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. It's more dangerous. If you think about it, you'll occasionally see a very old smoker. You almost never see a very old obese person. They don't make it. And so I really wanted to help him, and I gave him all the rules. I'd solved it for myself, and I gave him the rules. I said, eat less of this, don't eat that at all, eat more of this. I gave him all the rules. And for about a month, he followed the rules, which was better than the average. And he lost about 15 kilos, and he looked amazing. But then he just started to slide.
Yeah.
And I was so sad about that and angry with myself. I felt like I'd failed. And that made me decide to begin the process of researching behavioral change. How can you take those rules and combine them with processes that would make it easy for people, that would the way my friend that I mentioned earlier, Jeffrey Perlman, who's one of the founders of Zumba, he said, wow, Eric, everybody's out there looking for a diet they can stick to, but you created a lifestyle that sticks to them. That's what I wanted to do. And so I started doing the research into that. And I remember I finally thought I was ready, and I invited 8 clients to come and do the first program with me. And I took them week by week through the processes, psychological exercises, interesting stories, nutritional changes, week by week by week. And at the end of the 13 weeks, at the end of 3 months, every one of the 8 of them had dramatic improvement in their health. Now, that's not statistically likely. You know, the diet industry has about a 1% success rate, and most of those people relapse as well. So to get 8 for 8 was pretty good, but it's also a small test group, right? And they're all clients of mine, and they knew me, so I'll try again. I took another 8. It worked again. And it was at that point that I decided to digitize the program, and so that I could reach far more people, because I couldn't do 8 at a time. How many people could I reach? And so I recorded the program, and then something really fascinating happened, is that a friend of mine, who's quite a famous author in America, he did the program. And he called me one day and he says, Eric, this is amazing. I go, what? And he goes, my team just sent me a landing page for a webinar, and the picture on it, I don't even recognize the guy.
No.
Yeah, and I asked my team, where did you guys even get that picture? And they go, we shot that picture at Portraits 3 months ago. And he goes, well, this is what I look like now. And he sent me the pictures. And he sent me, like, it was complete. And he goes, can I tell my network about your program? And I go, no, it's in beta. He goes, what's your website? I said, I don't have a website. And he goes, you better have one by the end of the week. No kidding, I put up a website. At that point, maybe 100 people had done WildFit. Like, we were doing maybe 100 per year at that point. And all of a sudden, in about a day and a half, maybe a week, 150 people, 200 people signed up immediately. And now we started getting real statistics, because we could really see that it was working with people who didn't know me. Strangers were coming in and doing the program, and their relatives were doing the program. And that company, that publisher, a year later, they surveyed all the people and asked them how they were doing. And 80% of them, 80% of them said they were still completely on track.
So we say 80% versus 1%, right?
Yeah, and the other 20%, they all said they were way better off than they were before. They just felt like they could have done better. So it was phenomenally successful. And now we've had over 50,000 people in 100 countries do the program all over the world.
So you accompany the people in their lives. You teach them lessons. You teach them how to. I think you also teach them what is good food, what is bad food, how do these processes in our bodies work. You give them advice, psychological advice. What is more? Is it more the understanding of the principles, or is it more being accompanied and taken by the hand? And is it more brain, or is it?
I would say it's more something else entirely, and it's the rewiring of the neural pathways of the brain. So educating somebody about food is helpful, but not that helpful. I mean, the truth of it is, anybody watching this interview knows that they should be eating less processed food, less refined sugar, less food coloring, and more natural, whole foods, organic if they can. Everybody already knows that.
And then they tell you I don't have time to cook myself. I don't have time to whatever. It's so they don't take care of on their my English. They don't care for themselves.
There's a Chinese expression that says to know and not to do is not to know.
Yeah.
So information isn't enough. If they're not acting on it, then they don't really know it. Yeah. So that's where the behavioral change stuff comes in, where what we need to do is to get people, think of it this way. If we have a group of teenagers in this room and we suddenly announce that we're gonna go order a bunch of soft drinks and pizza and ice cream, right?
Yes,
exactly.
Sure.
But now, if we ask them, even before they eat it, make the sound that represents how you will feel half an hour after eating all that. They know that. What's crazy is they know that, but humans are not very good at long-term consequences. And consequences an hour later are long-term. So they're not very good at that. Humans are good at short-term consequences. In other words, it's gonna taste good now, it's gonna feel good now. But they know, you ask them, how would you feel if we got pizza? Yay! How are you gonna feel half an hour later? Blah. They know that. What if we could connect that faster? What if I could make it happen that the minute you thought about eating some garbage, non-food, junk food, that you immediately could feel the way it was gonna make you feel later?
How do we need it? How?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different techniques that we use in the program, but one of them really is just consciousness. So most people eat unconsciously, right? Like they sit in front of the TV and they just eat. They don't think about it. They taste the first few bites and then after that, they're just filling their face. So What that means is that they have some consciousness maybe about the decision they made, then they taste the first few bites, and then after that they stop paying attention. So one of the things we want to do is keep them paying attention, because here's what's amazing. Food isn't as yummy as people think it is sometimes.
That's right.
Like they see some piece of chocolate and like, oh my God, it's the best ever. And they eat one piece and it's amazing. And they eat a second piece and it's still amazing. And the third piece, it's like they're not even tasting it anymore.
It's decreasing. The first two bites are wow, and then even with something intensive like pizza or whatever, the first slice, wow, and then. And you enhance the consciousness on that tasting experience.
So we have some techniques we use in the first 2 weeks of the program that cause people to push their consciousness through the eating experience. And so now what happens is they begin going, oh my God, that's what this really tastes like? And I'll explain, this is very interesting. Say somebody's feeling sad, depressed. What could they eat to feel better?
Let's say chocolate.
Let's say chocolate.
Okay.
Now, let's say you're the one who's feeling sad and depressed. And I go, I have chocolate.
Oh, give me.
When will you start feeling better?
Immediately, when I just taste, but after that, after a few minutes, I won't be happy anymore.
I'm telling you, they already know that you're wrong. Yeah. You started feeling better the minute I took it out.
Oh, yeah, it's right, yeah.
Isn't it true?
Yeah, it's yeah.
It proves that it's not the food that makes you feel better, it's the idea, it's the conditioning and the programming. So you're feeling sad and depressed, and I go, I have chocolate, and you're like, oh! And you feel good. Now here's the problem. You spike your serotonin and your dopamine, and you're feeling good, and then you eat the chocolate, making the chocolate taste better than it really is. That's part of the problem.
So expect something great, good feeling. From the moment of expectation, you have some kind of a craving which will be met, and then you feel good, and after that you fall down again.
Yeah, it's like, you know how you get, like a song can make you feel a certain way?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So why can it make you feel that way? Let's say one song makes you feel like makes you feel like partying. Why does it make you feel that way? Because before you were having a great party while you listen to that song, right? So now I have some chocolate, you start to feel good, you eat the chocolate, and now your body starts to go, oh, it was the chocolate that made me feel good. It wasn't. It was never. I mean, sure, maybe now the sugar causes even more serotonin production. But so what happens is, as clients start to see those relationships and they start to connect them, like some people know, for example, that if they eat, say, like drinking is a good example. Say somebody goes out and has a little bit too much to drink. They know that they're possibly going to feel a little off the next day, maybe fully hungover. They know that. And sometimes when they've been hungover, they've even promised never to do it again, right? I did that. I did that 30 years ago. I was drinking one night, I got quite drunk. The next morning I had a hangover, and I made the deal with God. I said, I'll never drink again. You know what though? I never did. I'm like the only person that kept that promise.
Really? That's true?
Never, not 30 years.
No drop of alcohol?
No alcohol in 30 years. Right. But the trouble is that what happens for most of us is that the pleasure and the consequence are so far apart. So what we do over that, especially in the first 2 weeks, is we start to draw those things together. So for example, when I smell wine, I immediately feel a sense of hangover. It doesn't work for me. I don't like it. Yeah. That's what we want to do with people, is make them bring the timeline closer.
So let's go back to the depression. I'm depressed or feel depressed, whatever. And usually I would drink a glass of wine or beer or eat a chocolate or eat a pizza. So how can you wire up new behavior so that I don't connect my feeling better to some kind of food like that?
Okay, the first part comes with the understanding of what you're doing, right? That's the first part. So for example, let's do this. You're feeling depressed, and then you go, well, chocolate can help me feel better. Here's first problem that you need to become conscious of, is that your body likes chocolate because it has all this free energy, fat and sugar. It likes it. I mean, it doesn't mean it's good for you, but your body wants all the free energy. So now here's the problem. You allow yourself to become depressed for some reason, something gets to you, and then you reward your depression with chocolate.
Wow. So you have a reason to stay depressed, yeah.
You have a reason to get depressed again 5 minutes later.
Yeah, right.
Right? So your body starts to learn, oh, well, if I want chocolate, all I have to do is create depression. And so people get trapped by food that way. Now, the first thing is that once people start to see that...
That's an important point.
It's huge.
I think many circles in life work like that. Yeah. So we do things, we become victims of our programming, and we feel helpless in order to get some rewards in that state, and so we can be unhappy with our jobs, our relationships, our body, whatever. I think it's the same mechanics behind that again and again.
Yeah, you see it also when people have guilt or shame about what they eat. You know, they decide to go on a diet. Diets don't work. They just don't. We know they don't. But somebody decides one more time to go on a diet.
I think it's also the whole thing with emotional eating. You feel, well, I feel whatever I need.
So somebody goes on a diet and then they cheat. Mm-hmm. And then what do they feel when they cheat?
Shame.
Shame and guilt. But shame and guilt are food triggers. They make people eat.
Yeah, sure.
So somebody cheats, now they feel guilt and shame. And what can cure guilt and shame? Chocolate.
Sure.
And the same cycle has to be repeated. So to change that pattern for people, the first thing is to really let them see that pattern, to really show it to them and demonstrate it to them, not just explain it, but let it happen in their lives. Point it out to them in their lives. Like, you can even do this with children. My daughter, for example, she's like every other kid. She's 6, and you know, and she goes to school, and we don't have any like gross sugar in the house, but she's gonna find it at the school, right? So she comes out of the school and she goes, oh, daddy, somebody gave me these M&Ms. You know, can I eat them? Well, I don't want to say no, because if I say no, then it becomes a rebellion, and everybody likes a little rebellion, so I don't want to do that. So I say to her, you certainly can if you want to. I said, but what do you already know about M&Ms? And then she goes, well, I know it's not really the best kind of sugar, and I know it's not the best kind of treat. And I go, okay, so why do you want to have it? She goes, because it tastes really good. And I go, okay, but you remember that sometimes when you eat this kind of sugar, then later you have like some kind of a temper tantrum or you feel yucky. You remember that? And she goes, yeah, but I don't think it'll happen this time. So then she eats them. Then what happens half an hour later? She has a little bit of a mood thing or a little bit of a temper tantrum, what have you. And I go, hey, you remember the M&Ms? And then she links it up. And then the next time, and this happens, like she went on Halloween and people gave her all these like M&M candies and stuff like that. And she came back to the house and she goes, I don't want these because they make me feel yucky.
Wow. Do you allow yourself to eat some sugar sometimes?
First of all, allow, it's a very careful word.
It still sounds a bit like a strict rule.
Yeah, exactly. Allow means that you're under some big rules. It's not about allowing, it's about making conscious decisions.
Do you enjoy
I do.
sugars, cheesecake or chocolate or pizza, or do you enjoy that sometimes?
I have, so in WildFit, we teach people that there are different types of foods. So there are category 1 foods. These are essential foods. You must have them. You need these things. Then there's another category of food, which is kind of like, you know, they're probably good for you, but maybe not essential, like avocados. They're not essential. They come from South America. Humans only got them for the first time 400 years ago, so we can hardly call them essential. But they're full of folic acid and healthy fats, so they're category 2. Then you have category 3. In category 3, you have foods that you know aren't that good for you, but you eat them sometimes. You know, like maybe I know popcorn's not the best thing, but I like to have a popcorn occasionally at the movies, maybe. That's category 3. You want to make sure that that's only occasional, right? Then you have this 4th class of foods, and they're not food. And I'm not here to tell people what that is for them. I don't tell, these are the non-foods, you must not eat them. No, we're about freedom. We're about you feeling fully free to eat what you want to eat. We help you to decide what foods are in that category. So my guess is that you right now have foods that when you were a kid, they were food for you, but now you won't even touch them. Is there anything like that?
Sure.
Example?
French fries, which I used to eat a lot, and now it's once in 2 months or something.
But if it's once in 2 months, you consider it to be a class 3 food. It's something you eat occasionally, right? But a class 4 food is something that you don't even regard as food. I'll give you an example from my life. Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Or in Germany, Capri-Sonne, which is a sweet drink, which is just sweets and tastes like orange. Or
I don't. The only thing I use Coca-Cola for in my house is toilet cleaner.
Yogurt.
For me, same thing. Yogurt's in that class now. But there are other people that choose that for them yogurt is class 3. They're going to have it occasionally. So in WildFit, what we do is help people determine that for themselves. We don't dictate it. We help them determine that for themselves. And you know what's really interesting is that if you try to force a food into that last category, like you go, that's it, I'm never gonna have cheesecake again, and you put it down there.
Yeah, I want cheesecake.
You're gonna have it again. Sometimes what has to happen is that you have to arrive at something we call the 0 point. The 0 point is where a food no longer has control over you. It's like, I don't even want it anymore. Like, you couldn't pay me to drink a Coca-Cola. It's done. I don't have to use willpower. And so that's not because I put food in that, it's not because I put that drink in that category, it's because it arrived there. And that's what we help our clients to do, is to categorize their food. So you're asking, the original question is, do I allow myself? Oh, of course I do. But there are lines I won't cross. I, for example, will not have a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or a 7-Up. I just won't do that. But will I have like a really gorgeous fruit smoothie that I know is full of sugar? Yeah, of course I'll do that from time to time. Will I have a nice organic cinnamon bun maybe once a year? It is not about restriction. It is about freedom, but it's also about conscious freedom.
Eric, we understand why you are such a good teacher. We understand how you change behavior in a long way, and I think we all can look forward to your masterclass on what you were talking about. We just had one of the 6. Wow. Eric, it was a pleasure. Vielen, vielen herzlichen Dank. Thank you for having been here. Danke dir fürs Zugucken.